Okay. So we took a break. Alright, about the side screws, they're a pain to get back in. It's also a pain to have them loosen and try to finagle the screen in there while you're trying to keep these wires straight without folding underneath and everything else. So 6 one way, half a dozen another. You're just going to have to make that call. I was able to get them back in. Also, what I ended up doing was securing the corner screws near the headphone jack and the power button to just get the screen to stay in right. So you may want to do that as well. It's up to you. Okay, so I had to pause for a minute. I was having trouble getting the display to be flush with the frame of the phone. So I took the display back out and there was broken glass stuck to the frame underneath the front of the phone. So I removed the glass with some tweezers. Broken glass crap that was stuck to that. Anyway, so put that back together. Thus far what I've done is I've tightened up the 6 screws along the case of the phone, along the side of the phone. Then I put in the 2 top screws, one near the power button and the headphone jack, to just make sure that the screen was in there and that it would sit flush, and it's sitting flush now. So let's continue on. So the next screw I'm going to do is near the dock connector cable. We're going to put that back in. We're basically just going backwards from where we were. So we went all the way to the end to disassemble the phone, and from the end we're going to go back and work through the instructions until we get to the beginning again and hope this thing works in the end of all things. These screws are very small. They're so small. So to get them to go in, I mean, you're either going to need to use plastic tweezers and you know, God help you. Or what I'm doing is I'm sticking them onto the end of the screwdriver, making sure that gravity's helping me out here. And then I'm just ever so carefully lining the screw up with the hole and pressing it in there in hopes that it's going to thread up right. Sometimes it helps to go backwards a couple turns because that might line up the threads, and then go forward. And you have to be very careful with these screws. They're so small, they'll strip out really easy. I mean, it doesn't take any amount of pressure to strip out these screws, so just do yourself a favor, go backwards a couple turns so the threads will click into place, and then start tightening. And you don't have to over tighten the screws. I mean, they're small, they really can't take that much torque anyway. So got the screw in next to the dock connector cable. Flipping back through my pages here. Next screw is going to be near the lower microphones, basically on the opposite side of where we just were. I'm just going to peel my tape back and get to that screw. And here it is. You can't even see it because it's so small that just pinching it between my fingers buries it. So there it is. Turn the phone over onto that corner so you can get gravity helping you, and just make sure you're ever so careful to line it up. Spin it backwards a couple times till the threads line up. And when you're trying to put the screw in, if you feel resistance before it's tight, your threads are crossed. So there, it's pretty much pressing against the tabs on the screen, and I felt a little resistance. I just gave it a little extra push there to make sure it's good and tight. And then, like I said earlier, I already put those screws in. That would have been on step 32. All right, so there was that black piece of tape that was up here. I don't think it's necessary, but for good measure, I'm just going to put it back because I'm kind of perfectionist that way. And I'd rather take the time to do it just in case it has some sort of importance as far as keeping something from shorting out or whatever, than to not do it and have to take the whole phone apart again to put that piece of tape in. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick it down in there, just like so. Hopefully reassembly will go a lot quicker than disassembly did. Alright, so next is to put in the speaker enclosure here, which if we remember correctly goes down here. Alright, so you remember those grounding fingers I talked about earlier? Just make sure, there they are right there. Make sure they're touching those two copper contacts right there. Okay? Make sure they're touching. Otherwise, no Wi-Fi, and anybody with an iPhone is going to be pretty upset about that. I'm just double checking the connectors here, make sure that they're nice and even. They look like they are, so I'm not going to really mess with them. There's some pressure tabs here. I can look at the side of the phone here. I'm going to, instead of trying to put it in the way I was before, I'm just going to ease it in like so, because I'm going to treat those little metal points kind of like a hinge against the case and try and lay it down into the case with those in there. Got to switch the phone around so I can see what I'm doing here. Okay. So, speaker's back in. Now we gotta probably put the screws in next, I would assume. Alright, there was that plastic clip from before that goes right there. You can see in relation to the connector, there's a screw there. There's a clip also that goes over that. And it's shaped like a isosceles triangle, I guess is the uneven one, if I remember right. It's been a while since I've done that kind of stuff. Anyway, I'm going to just take it off of my little piece of paper here and pull it out. Okay. So, the piece of plastic is shaped kind of like that corner of the speaker is. The screw is closest to the outside, so I'm going to put line it up according to where the screw hole is there. And I'm using my little plastic pointer piece here to get it in there because I don't see any other way to do it. Even the gloves are enough to pull that thing off, and so it comes off. Try and get it up again. I'm going to lift the phone up, let gravity help me here, not work against it. Alright, got that lined up with the hole, and just to make sure it doesn't come up when I pull my finger out, or this plastic thing out, I'm just going to hold it down with the screwdriver there. Alright, so next we're going to put in the screws. And they're both 2.4 millimeters, so I don't think it really matters which one goes into which hole. Let's hope I don't have to take the phone out because I'm wrong about that. Oh, so the speaker, of course, has a magnet in it, which is stronger than the screwdriver's magnetic charge, so it's pulling the screw off of it. Again, plastic tweezers would be a great idea right about now. I have some metal ones. I'm just going to use those to get that screw in there because there's really not anything in there right now that could be shorted out in that area. Making sure my tweezers aren't magnetic. Can't even hold them with tweezers. Alright, so finally got that screw put back in. Probably the easiest way to do that is to take that plastic isosceles triangle or whatever you want to call it, put the screw in that, put the screwdriver on top of the isosceles triangle and use this little guy to try and line everything up to get that in there because like I said, you're fighting the magnet on the speaker and it's a strong little magnet back there, so it's going to pull it off your screwdriver, even if the screwdriver's magnetized. And surprisingly, these ones from iFixit are magnetized, but not that magnetized. So anyway, so here we've got the other speaker screw. Just going to go ahead and stick it on the screw there. We're probably going to run in, I imagine, to a similar problem with the speaker on this side because it does have two. Nope, I got around it. Okay. Go backwards, hear the click, go forward. Okay? Now and I already did this, but check your contacts down there. I believe these are grounding contacts. Make sure they're all touching. They're spring loaded. They should be touching this metal frame. Okay? Alright. Alright, so next is the vibrator. Fortunately, when the vibrator came up, you can see kind of in the area where it was at, from the sticky. Right there, there's an outline. You can see the circle. And so we're just going to go ahead and put it back the way we found it. I'm going to line up the screw hole there and then drop it down. And just be careful, don't bend the little springs on that. I wouldn't even really touch that area with your hands. So I've got it down, got the screw hole lined up, and it seems to fit in the pattern that was there before. A little tweak like that. Alright, so we have that grounding finger that we pulled out earlier that is for the rear facing camera. This guy. And yeah, from the looks of the pictures, again, get plastic tweezers. That would be a very usable tool for this. So we're going to stick it down in there. Like it shows in the picture. And it has the tabs facing towards the side of the top of the phone there near the power button. Rest. Okay, it says this finger rests on top of the PCB and that it is screwed down and covered with black adhesive tape. Well, maybe I put it in too prematurely. Alright, so reading what it says, these instructions, is that this logic board goes in first. And that grounding clip that goes here actually sits on top of this board in that little corner right there. So we're going to carefully pull this back and slide in the logic board. And there's all sorts of wires down here, ribbon cables, that are going to get in the way of you doing this. So just make sure you get all those out of the way. Now this is not going in easy for me, obviously. So I'm going to pull it back out and look. Now, we've got this chip right here on this cord. So I'm going to just see if I can find out what that's all about and see what they want me to do with that. Because they don't mention it. So I'd imagine what you have to do, let's look underneath this here. This I would think would have to go flat. I'm just going to press it down till it's flat. Alright, let's make another attempt at this board. So, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in like this, pull these cables back. All, what, 3 of them there? Wonderful. Okay, get those cables out of the way. All of them are out of the way. Try and slide this thing in like so. These cables out of the way. God, I hope they're long enough to reach. That. Slide it in. And I think this little plastic piece here just enough to get this back over it, right? No, leave that down there, okay, I guess. Alright, so anyway, logic board back in. Take the grounding clip. Yeah, it's got to go underneath that. Wonder how in the heck you're supposed to do that. Might even be easier to put the grounding clip on even before you put the logic board in, maybe. I don't know how many more fingers you could possibly spare to hold that in while you're doing that, but maybe it'll work. Alright, so we got the grounding clip back in. Now, that piece of rubber that came out, supposedly supposed to go right on the side of that logic board. So when the cables bend over it, it's not that tight of a turn as it would be without that rubber bumper there. So I'm going to stick that back into the side of the logic board there. And actually Probably would have been easier to do it with the logic board out, so I'm just going to pull the logic board back a little bit and do this. And take the logic board out and do it.